The year was 1879. In the quiet German town of Ulm, a baby was born, one who would one day shake the very foundations of science. Yet, in his infancy, Albert Einstein was nothing remarkable. In fact, his parents worried. He was slow to speak, unusually quiet, and often lost in thought. No one, not even his family, could have imagined that this silent child would one day decipher the secrets of the universe. But hidden within that quiet exterior was a mind unlike any other. A mind that would one day challenge the very nature of time and space itself. A troubled beginning. Einstein's early years were anything but promising. He struggled in school. His teachers found him absent-minded, uninterested in rote learning. They even called him lazy, dismissing him as a failure. The rigid Prussian education system did not accommodate dreamers, it crushed them. Yet, beneath that seemingly unremarkable exterior, something extraordinary. That moment changed everything. The tiny needle, mysteriously pointing north no matter how he turned it, filled his young mind with questions. Why? How? What invisible force controlled it? This was the beginning of a relentless curiosity that would never let him rest. Exiled from academia, by the time he was a teenager, Einstein had already developed a deep love for mathematics and physics. But the education system refused to recognize his brilliance. He despised the suffocating rigidity of his schooling and, at 16, dropped out altogether. His family was horrified. Without a diploma, without a degree, how could he ever hope to achieve? Desperate to find another path, Einstein moved to Switzerland, enrolling in the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich. It was there that he encountered a new problem, one that would follow him for years. His genius was not recognized. His teachers saw him as rebellious, uninterested in following instructions. Despite graduating, he could not find a job. He was unemployed, aimless, and nearly broke. The world had no place for a young man who thought in questions rather than answers. The scientific community dismissed him, employers ignored him, and doors kept slamming in his face. But Einstein had settled for a humble job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. His task was to examine inventions, to analyze, critique, and approve the ideas of others. It was mundane work, far from the grand theories he dreamed of. But it gave him something far more valuable: time. Time to think, time to dream. At 1905, the miracle happened. In a single year, what would later be called his annus mirabilis, miracle year, Einstein published 4 groundbreaking papers. Each one challenged the very fabric of physics. One explained the photoelectric effect, laying the foundation for quantum mechanics. Another proved the existence of atoms, and he was still debated at the time. A third revolutionized the understanding of Brownian motion. But it was the fourth that would shake the world, the special theory of relativity. It contained a simple equation, yet one with unimaginable power. A equals mc squared. Energy and mass were not separate entities but interchangeable. The implications were staggering. It meant that a tiny amount of mass could unleash an unimaginable amount of energy, an idea that would later give birth to nuclear power and nuclear weapons. At first, the world did not understand. His papers were brilliant, but their impact was not immediate. He was still just a lowly patent clerk. But the scientific community could no longer ignore him. A storm was coming. The eclipse that changed everything. For years, Einstein continued refining his ideas. He pushed beyond special relativity and sought something greater, a theory that could explain not just motion, but gravity itself. By 1915, he presented his masterwork, The General Theory of Relativity. But theories are just words until they are proven. Einstein's ideas were bold, almost too bold to be believed. According to his equations, gravity was not a force in the traditional sense. It was the bending of space-time itself. But how could he prove something so unimaginable? The answer came in 1919. A solar eclipse provided the perfect opportunity. British astronomer Sir Arthur Eddington set out to test Einstein's predictions that light from distant stars would bend as it passed near the sun. If he was right, the entire framework of Newtonian physics would be overturned. The world waited. When the results came in, they were undeniable. Einstein had been correct. Light itself was bending. The universe was not what it had seemed, but it became a global sensation. His name was no longer confined to the halls of academia. It was now spoken in newspapers, in coffee shops, on the streets. The man who had once been rejected by universities, ignored by employers, and dismissed as a dreamer was now hailed as a genius. But fame came with a price. The shadow of war. As Einstein's fame grew, so did the dangers around him. By the 1930s, the world was darkening. In Germany, Adolf Hitler was rising to power. Einstein, a Jewish scientist in a country descending into madness, was now a target. In 1933, he fled. Leaving behind his homeland, he sailed to America, where he accepted a position at Princeton University. He had escaped the horrors of Nazi Germany, but the war had only begun. Then, in 1939, something terrifying happened. Scientists discovered that nuclear fission was possible. The power locked within Einstein's equation, A equals mc squared, could now be harnessed. And the Nazis were working on it. Terrified by the implications, Einstein took an unprecedented step. He signed a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, warning that Germany might be developing an atomic bomb. This letter led to the creation of the Manhattan Project weapons. But Einstein himself was not invited to work on the project. The US government deemed him a security risk. He was horrified when, in 1945, bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing hundreds of thousands. The very equation he had derived had become a weapon of unimaginable destruction. He spent the rest of his life advocating for peace, warning against the dangers of nuclear war. The man who had once unlocked the secrets of the universe now saw the shadows they cast. The final years, despite his warnings, the world had changed irreversibly. The Cold War had begun, and Einstein, now an old man, watched as nations raced to build bigger and deadlier weapons. But even in his final years, his mind never stopped. He worked tirelessly on a final, unfinished dream, a unified field theory, an equation that could unite all the forces of the universe. But it eluded him. On April 18, 1955, at the age of 76, Einstein passed away. Even in his last moments, he remained a mystery. His final words, spoken in German, were lost to history. His nurse did not understand the language. His brain, removed for study, revealed something extraordinary. Unlike normal brains, Einstein's had an unusual structure, particularly in the areas related to mathematical reasoning. Even in death, he remained an enigma. The legacy of a rebel. Albert Einstein was not just a scientist, he was a revolutionary. A dreamer, a rebel against conventional thinking. His theories reshaped physics. His ideas paved the way for technologies we use today: GPS, lasers, nuclear energy, even the very structure of the cosmos as we understand it. But more than that, he was a man who never stopped questioning. A man who, despite being dismissed, rejected, and ridiculed, never let go of his relentless curiosity. He once said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." And perhaps, that is the greatest lesson he left behind.